Cimoooooooo! What's going on, guys? It's Cimo, and welcome back to yet another live duel commentary. So, for this match, we have Shovon Roy playing Salamangreat going up against Armond Smith playing Invoked Mekk-Knight. This is a top 8 match from the Luxury Championship Series event that took place this past weekend. Some big money on the line, and we wanted to bring you that feature match today. So, for this electrifying commentary, as always, we have my partner in crime, the one and only Mr. MBT Yu-Gi-Oh! How are you doing, Joseph?
I'm doing very well, considering. I am very excited to watch two of the most exciting decks in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Set a whole bunch of cards.
I think you're talking about your beloved Subterrors, unfortunately. That we might have that feature match later.
Oh, please. Instead, I'm going to have to look at your beloved deck, Salamangreat.
Hey, this is a very... I don't even know what I was about to say. I was trying to make a horrible pun there, but we're going to pass on that. We're just going to go with this Salamangreat Foxy here. That's going to go ahead and add one of those Salamangreat cards to hand. Now followed up by a Sident Mining. So now we get to grab that Gazelle. That will trigger the Gazelle because once a Salamangreat monster has touched the graveyard, which Foxy did, you can now drop the Gazelle out of your hand. I love that interaction.
Do you? I wouldn't say love, but, you know, I understand it's a part of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I'm going to have to tolerate.
Hey, out of all the top decks, this is definitely the fairest that there is. This is still Master Rule 4, keep in mind. So, you know, Salamangreat's still better off now. But even in Master Rule 5, I don't really think Salamangreat is going to be too hindered by a lot of the decks that are there. Except maybe, like, you know, Invoke Shaddoll, considering Winda is still a card.
Oh, certainly not. I mean, the big thing that I think people were expecting coming into the Luxury Championship Series tournament was that there was going to be a lot of Artifact Dagda, Union Carrier, cards that floodgate you out of the extra deck. And it turns out a deck as consistent as Salamangreat really doesn't care about that over the course of a 9-round tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw Armand dropping down a Phantasme, as a matter of fact, in response to the Balinks being summoned. So Armand got a couple cards there, got to sculpt his hand a little bit. But now we see Shovon ending on the Transcode Talker Salamangreat Wolf Sunlight setup here. And that's going to be met with Nibiru on Armand's side here. So pretty good, clearing off that board. I'm not sure if Shovon is actually playing the Microcoder build, and he's playing the Cynet Conflict Trap, which would allow him to essentially have like a Salamangreat Roar-esque effect. But we'll just have to see. It's very, you know, untraditional for Salamangreat to go on that board turn 1 unless they are playing a card like that.
Yeah, Nibiru is frustrating. Salamangreat can chew through just about anything. It's the major strength of the deck, but everyone has to respect the rock. At the very least, he was able to activate the will of the Salamangreat post Nibiru, which is something.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. He's able to get his Sunlight Wolf back online, which is pretty good, and he can Reincarnation Link Summon it since he never used the Sanctuary prior to this. So, like, it's not bad, right? I mean, if his board has a Roar in the background, I mean, he's able to just be able to stop something. Obviously, 2 negates is better than 1 if he's on that Cynet Conflict, but now we get to see some Mekk-Knight fun. There is the Indigo Eclipse.
Ooh, and that's a sweet one to draw, because of course you can just move over, and that zone that's now unoccupied is fresh and prepared for a purple.
Yep, so purple now is going to hit the field. Purple, such a strong card, being able to just dodge effects, so floaty. It's also 2,500, which, you know, Salamangreat's a deck that has an issue getting over big monsters, and these Mekk-Knights could potentially pose a problem for a deck like this.
Oh, we're just going straight to battle phase, hitting in for as much as possible.
Yep, so that 1,800 defense on that Nibiru token, not going to stand much in the face of Indigo Eclipse, but now we're going to get to see Purple Nightfall here. Going to be met with Salamangreat Rage, so that's going to be able to... Yeah, that's pretty good. I think the Purple Nightfall is only able to chain its effect. Or actually, no, it looks like that's what he's going to do here. So he's going to chain the effect to get Blue Sky before Rage is able to pop cards. Remember, Rage does not target. The only thing it targets is the Salamangreat monster you're wanting to use to determine the number of pops for the Rage. So I like this. This is heads up. You banish the Purple Nightfall, get your Blue Sky in hand, and then you're able to have a solid follow-up on your... main phase 2.
It was actually a banish of the Indigo Eclipse. Purple Nightfall doesn't have to banish itself, but unfortunately for the Mekk-Knight player, it doesn't banish as cost. So likely what was happening is the Salamangreat player was doing their best to hold the Rage until the activation of Purple, so you could eat both Purple and the other Mekk-Knight. Unfortunately, it just didn't pan out that way.
Unfortunately. So now we're in main phase 2. We're going for the blue sky, just as we saw. Here comes an instant fusion now. Instant fusion. I don't know about you, Joseph. I'm very happy to see this card limited for Master Rule 5.
I wanted it banned. This card is incredible. It's removal. It's a tuner for Halka-Fibrax. It does everything. Surely eating up 2 slots in the extra for 1 card in the main is too steep a cost for decks to play it very consistently, but I would have preferred if it was out of my life forever.
And so now Thousand Eyes Restrict hitting the board, gonna take that Sunlight Wolf, so that's a pretty solid way to deal with that, dodging any sort of Baling's protection, even though Shovon obviously already used Baling's his turn to protect from Nibiru. Linking off into Gravity Controller here, so just able to free up his board. We are gonna see both Gazelle and Nibiru come down now, it looks like.
Oof,
so
activated
it looks like
in sequence, he'll get both of them.
Right, and that is huge. So now the entire board's going to get eaten up. Nibiru's going to get dropped down first, so Armand's going to get the token, and then Gazelle will resolve after the fact, since that's the way the chain was stacked. So Gazelle's going to hit the field. Shavon's going to get to dump. Most likely will dump something like Falco here, because he kind of has everything else he needs. Possibly Jack Jaguar if he doesn't already have it, which I don't think he does. So we'll see. He is going to go for the Falco. I think that makes the most sense because then you can just reuse the Gazelle. But Falco also will allow him to reset the Rage for his following turn. And he's looking pretty good right now. Nibiru gives him the damage needed to probably OTK on this following turn if he can just clear that token.
And that shouldn't be any problem at all with a set copy of Rage. I mean, wow, Salamangreat is just... If you've mastered the skill of top-decking Circle, you've mastered Salamangreat.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to see Circle right off the top, in draw phase notably, to play around that Droll and Lockbird, because that is a card that some people still play, because Spiral is in the format. Remember, this is Master Rule 4. Now we see Falco bouncing the Gazelle back to hand, so now you're able to, as soon as you link anything off, drop that Gazelle, and Rage can pop the token, and this should be lights out for Armand in game 1 here, unless there's some other card in his hand, because he is playing Invoked Mekk-Knight. It's a going second deck, so there's a chance he could be playing some hand traps. We'll just have to see.
It'd have to be pretty much exactly Nibiru, and I think it's pretty easy to assemble lethal without having to spend too much time link summoning. This is, I believe, 4, and we're about to take the token and attack for 9,000.
Yep, the token's going to switch control, and Armand's not even going to let it get to that point. We're just going to go straight to game number 2.
Wow. Pretty textbook from the Salamangreat player. Just unbelievable heads-up play. And even though the Invoke player had an unbelievably powerful hand and a suite of really strong monsters, couldn't make it over a Nibiru of a Nibiru.
I gotta give it to Shovon, though, because dealing with Nibiru turn 1 as a Salamangreat player, that's one of the hardest obstacles to overcome. Usually Nibiru in later turns isn't as devastating because you're already set up, so the fact that he's able to navigate that, obviously the Nibiru of his own helped, and access to Gazelle, but still, being able to come back for that is still pretty impressive.
I mean, you saw turn 1, he had the option to add Salamangreat Circle and instead opted to add Will off of a Foxy activation. I mean, it doesn't get much more heads up than playing around Nibiru than that.
So interesting. So Shovon was actually forced to go first by Armand, but he actually just passed the turn.
He says, what are you going to do, OTK me with Mekk-Knight? I don't think so.
Well, this is what's so funny. Remember, Shannon Long, the prominent Mekk-Knight player, we've seen him play a lot, and one of the ways to kind of stop these Mekk-Knight decks is that if you don't give them a zone, they actually can't summon the Mekk-Knights unless they have a card of their own, like in Shannon's pure Mekk-Knight build, to be able to give them like that extra monster zone occupied to create a column for the Mekk-Knights.
Obviously, cards like A-Lister help, but, you know, you don't always draw them.
So now we're seeing a Flame Buffalo hidden for 14. We're going to go to main 2. We're going to link offer the Balinks, grab the Sanctuary. So now it looks like we're going to be establishing a little bit here. Buffalo is going to trigger pitching the Falco, drawing 2 more cards. So maybe he was just waiting for the ability to just have a battle phase, potentially. I'm not sure why he's doing this turn instead of the turn prior.
Yeah, it's rough to think about. Obviously, we don't have information in terms of hands, but you want to be able to set up for an OTK. Probably don't feel safe doing it into 3 set cards, even if they're likely just Mystic, or not Mystic, Instant Fusion and the like. But setting up to a point where there's no way that the Mekk-Knight player will be able to get through something like a Rage is probably good enough.
So we have Mining, and we got Gazelle, and Gazelle's going to dump the Jack Jaguar here. This should allow Shovon to set up rather nicely, just getting a typical setup with Sunlight Wolf, which isn't anything too crazy. He's going to have to prepare himself for what Armand might have on the crackback next turn, because, again, 3-set back row, he's going to have 4 cards in hand. That's a lot of resources to work with, so we're going to see what Shovon ends on here. Okay, we're going to link off into another Baylings. Going to bring back the Jack Jaguar, shuffling that Baylings back into the extra deck.
You got to do what you got to do, and likely you're going to have extraneous link material as well. Wow, the Nightmare Phoenix coming down.
I like this, being able to just start taking care of some of Armand's cards while also maintaining card advantage yourself. I think this is perfectly fine, especially if you're going to plan on going to something like Transcode Talker anyway. I'm curious to see where this is going to go. So,
wait, if we go into something like Heatleo, is it possible that the Mekk-Knight player suddenly doesn't have the ability to set a card and set up a zone?
Yeah, it's possible, because then there won't be any back row remaining. It is going to be a Cosmic Cyclone on the Phoenix target, though, so that's going to take care of the Sanctuary.
Yeah, but that's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like, negligible at that point. Sanctuary is obviously a good card, but, I mean, he's already gotten the value out of it. So, I mean, granted, there's only one of the decks, so you don't have to worry about seeing it again. So now we're going to go off into Heatleo here. That's going to take care of the remaining back row, or excuse me, it's going to take care of one of the back row, because since he already did use Sanctuary, he can't take care of both, unless he has another means to take care of the last one.
Ooh, and really heads up, putting the one that's under the extra monster zone, just in case we find our way to a copy of Almirage.
That's probably for the best, considering, you know, all he needs one Alistair, and you can pretty much get there. So, we're going to set a card and pass. To be fair, if Shovon has a copy of, let's say, Roar in the back row, that would pretty much deal with whatever that last set card is, since he has the Heatleo up. So, it effectively would act like a second Heatleo, even though it's not.
That seems like a bait. Why would you put it in that zone, unless it's exactly Roar?
Well, it's impermanence.
Even better. Wow, that would be why.
That's pretty good. So not only is the Mekk-Knight Blue Sky going to be negated, but the set back row is not going to be active as well. So if that's an instant fusion, that's going to get denied. But here comes Purple Nightfall. Armond has the follow-up, and Magical Meltdown off the top.
Wow, incredibly patient play. Either he drew the Meltdown for turn, or he just waited and waited and waited, not willing to commit a light monster in hand. Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, this is huge. So there is still a Baylings in Graveyard, but if we go into something like Purgatrio, we could banish it. So we're going to have to see if Armand has enough follow-up here to be able to just win the game outright. So here comes Almirage. Nothing too big there.
See the invocation and ooh, the DD Crow now.
Yeah, so we're going to see a preemptive DD Crow on the Alistair. So that means the invocation is effectively turned off at this point, and we're just going to go to battle. So that DD Crow probably saving Shovon immensely in this position.
Wow, that's an incredibly heads-up play. And now with the Baylings in Graveyard, it looks like this Heatleo might even make it until the end of the turn.
Yeah, so the awkward thing about Heatleo is he's not going to be able to Reincarnation Link summon because, again, Sanctuary is gone, and Link 3 is kind of difficult to make again, because, like, Link 2, you just need another monster, and you can use the Sunlight Wolf as an example as another one to make another 2. So Heatleo, I don't think we're going to be seeing a second one necessarily. I could be wrong. He does have the monsters in Grave, but it's not necessarily the ideal setup here.
We're going for Alistair, the Invoker of Madness, which turns Invocation back on, but at a pretty steep cost.
You're right. He does have to lose some resources here, but, I mean, he can get set up with Macabre potentially. That way he has some sort of disruption during Shovon's turn. And given what else is in his hand, we're going to have to see if that's enough in this particular instance. There comes the Macabre. And there comes the Nibiru! Oh my god, that is punishing.
And no cards in hand means that there's no possibility for Macabre to negate it. Instead, he's just going to tag out of this Purple Nightfall for a blue, but oof, wow. 2 to the graveyard and not enough defense to defend against the rock.
Right, so this is going to be rough here. Shovon has some resources in Grave as well. I mean, he's got the Spinny, the Jaguar, the Falco. He should still have Gazelle in hand after all this, too. This is going to be rough. So it only has 2100 defense. Now we see Gazelle come down since a Salamangreat monster was sent to the graveyard. So now Gazelle can dump. He kind of has everything at this point. He could just set something like Will potentially for a just big explosive play here.
It's going to be harder to reincarnation summon a wolf than it would be with Sanctuary, but I have complete confidence in the ability to do so with a graveyard like that.
Yeah, with a graveyard with all of the cards that he has, it's not going to be difficult at all just establishing those monsters. Sending the Will, as I thought, that makes the most sense considering he has pretty much every other Salamangreat monster already in his graveyard, so he doesn't need to get rid of anything else. He can bounce Gazelle back to hand with Falco. The biggest question mark here is those 2 back row. Are those going to be enough to defend Armand from Shovon's next turn? Because if not, and depending on what cards are in Shovon's extra deck, this could be game over. We're going to see another Invocation, though.
Oh, was that a hard-drawn invocation? It was set before Magical Meltdown was activated.
It was, yes. That was the one he set to summon in Purple Nightfall's column. So we are still going to see Mekka here. So it's not, he's got some sort of defense. At least that's pretty good from his end.
And for what it's worth, that set back row could be very impactful. It's just been off for the entire turn because of impermanence.
This is big. So Pot of Desires off the top for Shovon here. So he's going to draw a couple cards. That's not what you want to see if you're Armond. I mean, you just barely were able to establish a Mekk-Knight, an Invoked Mekk-Knight. And now you're just hoping that you're able to survive this turn. It's going to be tough, though.
All right, so here's the Falco activation. We know that the Mekk-Knight has a monster in hand, so that's the negate that's accessible.
So we're going to bounce Gazelle. He just has so much he can do here. He's going to pitch a Spinny just so we can get the Foxy back, most likely, from his graveyard, considering there is a face-up spell or trap. Yes, so Foxy comes out. That's going to pop the Meltdown. Not that Meltdown was too threatening there, but I mean, just able to get... He needed it on the field to get the Foxy out, so that actually did matter a little bit.
The fusion chain blocking. It's too strong.
So Spinny can resurrect itself since Shovon has a Salamangreat monster on the field. And now it looks like we're going to start linking here. So there comes Balinks.
I'm just really curious to know what that set back row is. It seems like the entire match hinges on exactly what that card is.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a big one. We're going to have to see. So we're going to shuffle the Heat Leo back into the extra deck to bring Jack Jaguar back to the field. And so now we can actually go into Heat. Oh, that's really good because Almirage is in Armand's graveyard. So that's going to give Shovon an extra material to work with here. Possibly go into a Heat Leo to be able to get rid of that back row. Or at the very least, bait the Mekk-Knight.
Now we are going into Heat Leo. You are correct.
Yep,
all right,
so
use it or lose it.
Right, so even if he uses it here, the Mekk-Knight does banish, so Balinks won't be able to protect it, but it looks like we're going to see Gazelle come down. I think Gazelle's actually going to chain block the Heat Leo here. So he won't even be able to respond to the Heat Leo's effect, and that is just super heads up from Shovon here, just being able to just demonstrate the knowledge of using Gazelle to chain block in this particular instance, and it's going to resolve. So Gazelle's going to come down, and the, he put the Gazelle back in his hand. I'm not actually too sure.
Oh, it looks like we might be having a discussion about if it's possible to chain block using Gazelle. You're the Salamangreat master here.
You should, because a Salamangreat monster left the field and Heat Leo is on summon, so I think they're trying to... Oh, so it looks like... Okay, so it looks like what's happening is I think... Oh, actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it looks like the answer is no in that case.
Unless Shovon ordered the chain link differently. For those of you watching, they were... the players aren't talking in the text box because they were actually talking via Discord. So they're just putting the Nibiru token values in there just for us to see. But interesting. Okay, so... Yeah, it looks like there was... Okay, yeah, so apparently not. Again, we're not too sure what happened there. All we know is that Mekk-Knight was used in response to the Heat Leo.
And it looks like we've still got the Gazelle in hand as well.
Right, Gazelle is still in hand. Interesting. Oh, because he didn't send a Salamangreat. That's right. He used Hita and the Almirage.
Oh, does it have to be to your graveyard?
Well, there's no Salamangreat monster to hit the graveyard.
Well, Almirage.
I think it does have to be your graveyard. I think that's the problem.
Slowly we are divining this.
There we go, yeah. So if a Salamangreat monster is sent to your graveyard, so that was the problem there.
Ah, I see. All right.
So yes, so that would have worked had Shovon specifically sent Jack Jaguar to graveyard. It may not matter because we're seeing Update Jammer here, and this is going to allow Shovon to go into Borreload Dragon. Borreload Dragon can steal both the Mekk-Knight and the Nibiru token, and that is going to be over 8,000 worth of damage because Borreload can attack and steal both. And unless that back row is like specifically Drowning Mirror Force.
Yeah, let's see Storming. Come on.
Let's see it. And that's going to do it. Wow. Okay, so we'll never know what that back row is, although actually we can probably look because we're on Dueling Book. It was Red Reboot.
Oh, no. So, well, that really did absolutely nothing in the back half of this match regardless.
Yes. To be fair, Red Reboot's pretty good against stopping Rage and Roar and also any other traps that potentially could come in if Shovon's expecting he's going to go first. Sanctum and the like. So, guys, that's going to wrap up the video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.